Greetings. Welcome to the video series, Miss Anne Thrope Explains. I'm Anne Thrope, and in this video, I will explain about Bloom's cognitive taxonomy. I want to remind you that anytime I ask you to think about something, what I really want you to do is to jot down some ideas or questions that come to mind about the topic I've asked you to think about. Thinking in this class is always done on paper or a page in a word processing program. You will need these notes when you return to class. Bloom's cognitive taxonomy comes to us from the work of a remarkable man named Benjamin Bloom, who lived in the 20th century. He was deeply curious about how people learned. His curiosity and his studies led him to understand that in all academic subjects, a student has to master several different cognitive tasks. The word cognitive is just a fancy word for thinking. Taxonomy is a fancy word for naming and classifying. Benjamin Bloom's cognitive taxonomy identifies and names thinking skills and classifies them by arranging them in the order one must follow to master academic thinking. Bloom's taxonomy simply lays out the roadmap for mastering an academic subject. Motivated students work their way up the taxonomy in any given academic area. This taxonomy will help you focus your attention and your energies. You might want to turn to page 2 in your course binder materials, where you will find a version of Bloom's cognitive taxonomy that has been adapted for academic writing. This taxonomy will be a vital tool for you in this composition class, and I will explain how to apply it more fully in another video. Your instructor and the teaching assistants also will guide you in how to use it well. In addition to the taxonomy, you will need highlighters, one pink, one yellow, and one green highlighter. The bottom of the taxonomy is where we find the most basic of thinking skills, knowledge and comprehension. For Benjamin Bloom, knowledge is the mere recitation of facts, the basic recognition of the subject content. In a history class, knowing important dates and the names of important people, when and where certain battles had been fought, or when and where certain events took place, constitute knowledge. In an English class, knowing the plot of a story, the names of the characters, the point of view of the narrator are all basic facts. Reciting a poem is a perfect example of the knowledge level of Bloom's taxonomy. You can memorize the words, recite the poem, yet be unaware of the connotation of those words or the significance of any metaphor or any other literary device. Concerned with basic facts and data, the knowledge level might not seem important, but if you skip over learning the basics, you will struggle to master the other thinking skills as you move up the taxonomy. You will hamper your mind because it won't have the source material with which the other thinking skills must engage. The next level up on the taxonomy is comprehension. Comprehension means you can take what you learned at the knowledge level and put it into your own words. One strategy many elementary and secondary teachers employ is to have their students explain what they've learned to someone else. As you can see, this is a different skill from simply memorizing or reciting. In a history class, you might summarize the strategy Miltiades used against the Persians at the Battle of Marathon. In an English class, you might paraphrase the key ideas in Elizabeth I's speech to the troops at Tilbury. These thinking skills indicate a comprehension of the subject. Please notice that the Bloom's taxonomy for academic writing groups knowledge and comprehension under the category of evidence. Please note that this version of the taxonomy also indicates that, for academic writing, the knowledge level provides quotes and the comprehension level provides paraphrases. I need to give you a word of caution, a caveat. For your first essays, limit your evidence to quotes. Once you have mastered integrating appropriate quotes into your essay, you may experiment with using paraphrase as evidence under the guidance of your writing instructor. Take your pink highlighter pen and highlight the sentence, "Evidence belongs at the knowledge and comprehension level." Look at the verbs listed between knowledge and beneath comprehension. These verbs indicate the work your mind must do at these levels. Highlight these verbs in pink also. After students have learned enough of the course material at the knowledge and comprehension level, they can move to the next cognitive task, which is, in a composition class, analysis. We need to step aside for a moment from our exploration of this taxonomy, which, as I have mentioned, has been adapted for composition courses that emphasize academic writing, and explain how it has been adapted. If you are already familiar with Bloom's cognitive taxonomy, you will note that the taxonomy for academic writing leaves out the application level. Because Benjamin Bloom studied learning in all areas, from the exact sciences through the humanities and the social sciences, he developed a taxonomy that could be adapted for any academic learning. Application is how one applies skills one has developed. In a composition class, the application level happens when students process reading and class lecture or discussion notes. The application level also happens when a student writes a draft of an essay or revises that draft. A student also works at the application level when providing feedback to classmates on their work. It's not part of the taxonomy for academic writing because the taxonomy will help you assess a piece of writing, but it will not assess the effort that went into the writing. Now back to analysis. The analysis level of Bloom's taxonomy is very good for identifying rudimentary inferences. When we label something or begin to categorize information or classify information in some way, we have begun the initial work of inference drawing. In a history class, one might compare the weapons used by the Greek hoplite warriors to the weapons used by the Roman legions. In an English class, one might compare Mr. Darcy to Mr. Rochester. Or you might label the various literary or rhetorical devices in a speech or poem. All of these cognitive activities belong to the analysis level of Bloom's taxonomy. But I must reiterate, these labels are not college-level inferences. These labels will indicate to you where you need to push your thinking to develop mature inferences that showcase your original intellect. Please take your yellow highlighter and highlight the sentence, "Inferences belong at the analysis level." Take a look at the verbs below analysis. These identify the skills, the cognitive tasks, necessary to begin the hard work of inference drawing. Highlight them in yellow also. Inferences are the most challenging aspect of academic thinking. Bloom's taxonomy gives us a good start toward the thinking required, but to do well in a college composition course and beyond, you will have to challenge yourself to exceed the basic cognitive skills the taxonomy suggests. I will explain more about the work of drawing valid and meaningful inferences in a later video. Let's return to Bloom's taxonomy for academic writing. Please take your green highlighter pen and highlight the sentence, "The thesis statements and topic sentences belong at the synthesis and evaluation levels." As students develop a deeper understanding of a subject area or of course materials through careful study at the knowledge and comprehension level, then moving into a more focused analysis of the material, their thinking in the subject area grows more mature, more sophisticated, more complex. In a history class, one might explore how the development of the cotton gin contributed to the Industrial Revolution. In an English class, one might explore how syntax and diction contribute to the tone in Wordsworth's Preludes. These are both examples of working at the synthesis level of Bloom's taxonomy. As you can see, sustaining a line of reasoning for either of these instances requires mature insight, which comes only after the student has mastered either the facts of the history of the Industrial Revolution or the rich and layered meanings possible in Wordsworth's poems. But you can see how the student is now qualified to judge the content. From this deeper and more sophisticated understanding, the student may now work at the evaluation level of Bloom's. The student is now qualified to argue from an authoritative point of view. The student is now qualified to develop a thesis. The verbs in Bloom's synthesis and evaluation levels identify the cognitive skills necessary to argue from an authoritative point of view. Please highlight all the verbs listed under synthesis and under evaluation, green. It is very important that evaluation be tied to a deep knowledge of material that comes only through careful analysis. Students are often tempted to judge or evaluate something with little knowledge or comprehension of material. To do so in a piece of academic writing, however, indicates intellectual laziness and leads to invalid arguments and a low score on your writing. I will explain the importance of valid arguments in a different video. Does Bloom's taxonomy for academic writing look familiar? Have your teachers shown you how to use it in the past? How does this taxonomy for academic writing relate to ways your writing has been assessed in the past? Spend a few minutes writing out a comparison of this taxonomy with other ways your teachers may have explained how to assess academic writing. If you are familiar with it already, write out how you have learned to apply it to your writing. You will discuss this with your writing instructor. Thank you for viewing this video in the Miss Anne Thrope Explains series.